Do you want to make a crochet wearable, but you're scared it's going to be too hard? Try this easy granny stitch poncho, perfect for beginners. Hi, it's Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this super easy crochet poncho, perfect for beginners. It's just double crochet, a little bit of single crochet, and you can totally do it. To make your super easy granny stitch poncho perfect for beginners, you're going to need yarn. This is just regular size 4 worsted weight acrylic, so just whatever normal acrylic yarn you have on hand. I used 4 different colors plus a neutral, but you could also just do it all in one color. You don't have to change colors. I'm going to show you how to join and continue or join and end that color. So don't think you have to do the exact same stripes that I did. If you do want to do the same stripes I did, it is all included in the written pattern. I will link that down below as well. So with this size 4 worsted weight acrylic yarn, I'm using a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. And if you're new to crochet, a stitch marker can be handy. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. So to start, leave about a 6-inch tail. We're going to need this for joining it up later. So make a slip knot, leaving a longer tail. Pop that onto your hook. And this is when we make the right size for us. For me, I made a size small. If I was making it again, I'd probably make a medium. And if you want to do extra small for a child, you will chain 54. So chain 54 for extra small, chain 60 for small, chain 66 for medium, and chain 72 for large. So pause the video and get your chain done. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. So when your chain is the width you want it to be, we're just going to chain one more. So to work into your back loops, just turn that chain to the side, and your first back loop is right here, right underneath the working yarn. We're going to work into the second back loop right there. So just pop your hook in, and we're going to do single crochets all the way back down our chain. So one single crochet into each back loop, all the way down along your chain. So it's just like these little camel bumps along the back of your work. All of those little bumps, we're going to do one single crochet into each. So pause the video, work all the way back down along your chain, and I'll meet you when you have made all of your chains into those back loops, and you're right over here. So now that we've worked single crochets into each of those back loops, the top and bottom of our chain match, so it's looking really pretty. This is going to be around our neck, so it's important. And you can also kind of see the size of it. This is a bit of a small size. It's still going to stretch. So now lay it out flat, so there's no twists, which is why I like to work into my chain before I join it up. So nice and flat, no twists. And now we're going to slip stitch to the top of our chain to join. So if you look at the top of our chain, we're just going to go underneath those first 2 loops of the V right there. So we have our little, not that bit on the side. We're going to work in right here. And we're going to slip stitch to join. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. Just like that. Now I'm going to be changing colors, but if you are going to join and continue, you would just start right here and make your first double crochet. So 3 little chains to make your first double crochet, and then into that same stitch, 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2, and that's how you would start if you're going to keep going with the same yarn. I'm going to be changing colors for mine. So if you're going to change colors, chain 1 to secure your yarn and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So it looks like that. And now we are ready to join a new color. With your work laying nice and flat, we want to count back to the halfway mark. So we're going to pop a stitch marker in to the 27th stitch if for extra small, stitch number 30 for small, stitch 33 for medium, and stitch 36 for large. So just on the opposite side of your join, you're going to pop in a stitch marker into that single crochet. That is where we're going to join our new colored yarn. If you are working on this side, don't even worry about it. Just keep going. You've done your 3 double crochets, so you're just going to keep going. But I'm going to start that set on the opposite side. So pop your hook into that same stitch. Grab your next color of yarn and put a loop on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 2. So this counts as our first double crochet, and into the very same stitch, 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Just like that. So now we're going to skip 2, 1 and 2. We're going to work into the third, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into the third stitch. So skip 2, 1 and 2, and into the third, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Skipping 2, 1 and 2, and into the third, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. If I'm going too fast or too slow, you can hit the gear on the video right there and slow me down or speed me up. And now skip 2 again, 1 and 2, and into the third, 3 double crochets. And we're going to do that all the way around our chain or our stitches until we get either to the stitch marker or to our join, depending on if you changed colors or if you are using the same color. Now, when you get back to your join where we started, there's the 2 we're going to skip. So we're going to do our next shell into this first stitch, kind of the second half. We're going to join this up later. So that's why I'm not going to join it up now, because we can really make it match and make it look fantastic when we do it later on. So just into this first stitch after the join, right here, I'm just going to go in and do my 3 double crochets, but we're also going to be doing an increase here. So we're doing our 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into the same stitch. So there's my first 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets. So we get that little point. That's our increase. And now pause the video, keep working around, skipping 2 and 3 double crochets into the third, all the way around until you get back to where we started, right over here. When you get back to where we started, we are going to work straight into the same stitch that where we began. So 3 double crochets into the very same stitch. 1, 2, and 3. And now there's 2 different ways to join. First, I'll show you how to join if you're going to continue. If you're going to continue, we're going to work into the same spot no matter what we do. So we're always working into the top of our chain, and we always want 2 strands on the top of our hook. But we're going to join with a single crochet if you're going to continue with the same color yarn. So single crochet, and just hold that spot open with your finger and thumb. Chain 2. We don't really need to chain 3. It gets a little too big. And into that very same space that we were holding open, 2 double crochets. So that counts as our first set of 3 double crochets. So that's joining and continuing with the same yarn. If you're going to join and end, like I am, we're going to do a chain 1, and into the very same spot, top of the chain 3, we're just going to slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure our yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up, your yarn through, snug that down to secure, and we are ready to start round 3 with a new color yarn. To join a new color, I'm going to join in the opposite corner. So now we have 2 corners, here and here. I'm going to join into the opposite corner. I'm just going to pop my hook into that corner space and get my next color of yarn. Just like that. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail just holding along the back of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So same. Just like that, that's our first double crochet, and 2 more double crochets into that same space. Just like that. So now in between each of these sets of stitches, we're going to make another set of stitches. So in between each set gets a new set. So 3 double crochets into each space between those sets. So there is 2 and 3. Jumping over to the next one, 3 double crochets. And into the next one, 3 double crochets. So you can pause the video, keep working along, 3 double crochets in between each of these sets all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get to your corner, the other end of your poncho, right over here. So into the corner space, we are going to do a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into the same space. And I'm working over that tail just to hide it a little bit. I'm still going to sew it in later, but at least it's gone over once. So there's my 3 double crochets and chain 2, and into the same space, 3 more double crochets. We want all of our stitches laying side by side, so you can also grab your work and pull your stitches back. That'll give you some more space to get your stitches lying nice and side by side. And then just keep working 3 double crochets into each space all the way along this side, and I'll meet you when you get right back here where we began. When you get back to where we began, into the same space, we are going to just finish that corner. So 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. If you're going to continue with this yarn, we're going to join to the top of the chain. So same spot no matter where we're or how we're joining. Top of the chain is where we're going to work in with our hook. And we're going to do 1 single crochet to join. And then just look where the center is. So 3 of those stitches on each side. And just pop your finger or thumb in there to hold it open. Chain 2, that's your first double crochet. And into the spot where you're holding it open, 2 double crochets. So that is how you're going to start if you are continuing with that yarn color. If you're going to change colors, you're going to slip stitch into that same spot, top of the chain 3, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up, your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. To start the next row, you are going to rotate your work. So we're working into the opposite corner where we didn't join the last time around. So we can join this time around. So insert your hook into that space. Loop of your new color on your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. And into this very same spot, 2 double crochets. Just like that. And now 3 double crochets into each space all the way around until you get to the point on the opposite side of your poncho. When you reach that opposite corner, just bring your tail forward so we can work over it And we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all into the center of that ring. So there's my 3 double crochets and chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same space. There, just like that. Now, regular stitches all the way along in between those spaces, all the way back along this side, and I'll meet you when you get right back here where we began. When we get back to where we began, we want to finish our corner, so slide those stitches ahead to give us more space along that chain, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into that same space. 2 and 3. And now, of course, you can continue with the same yarn. If you're going to continue, we're just going to single crochet into the top of that chain 3. And just hold that spot open with your finger and thumb. And chain 2 for your first double crochet, and then 2 double crochets into the space. So that is our starting block, or our starting set of 3. To join an end, chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch in to the top of that chain 3 to join, and chain 1 to secure our yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with the needle later. Pull your hook up, your yarn through, snug that down to secure, and keep going, either continuing with the same yarn or changing colors until your poncho is the size you want it to be. If you want to make your stripes in the same order I did, it is included in the written pattern on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you can also just fill in your own colors right here on that cute little chart. When your poncho is the length that you want it to be, the size you want it to be, we are ready to finish off just with a cute little row of single crochet. So to do that, we're going to join like usual with a single crochet to join and chain 1. So now we're going to turn our work. We want to be working in to the back of our stitches for this last row. It will help our work not naturally curl. You see how it naturally just wants to curl up? This will make it lie nice and perfectly flat. So into this very first stitch, right there, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around, just to give the bottom edge of our poncho a nice finished look. So we're just working in to each of these stitches all the way along our shawl or our poncho. You can pause the video and keep working along, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along. I will meet you when you get to the corner right over here. When you reach back to that corner space, I've done my last single crochet into the stitch right before the corner. Now into the corner, we're just going to do 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. Now you just kind of rotate your work a little bit so we can start working into the stitches along the next side. And 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along this side. And now you can keep going all the way around until you get back to where we started, right over here. When you get back to where we started, into that same corner space, we're going to do 2 single crochets. 1 and 2, and I'm going to join with an invisible join, and so are you. You could, of course, slip stitch into that single crochet and do a chain 1, but it's not the greatest thing, but you could do that. But I just want to show you how easy a invisible join is. So that is just after my last single crochet. So 2 single crochets into that corner space. No joining. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in, and pull your yarn up through that stitch. That's a scary part, but now it's over. thread your yarn needle. And now if you look at the edge of your stitches, right where we were going to put in our hook to slip stitch, we're just going to pop in our yarn needle. But we're going to keep an eye on where our yarn is coming from. You see that loop where the yarn is coming from? Keep an eye on that. We also want to put our needle back down through that same stitch where it came from. There, that was it. That's the invisible join. Not that hard, right? Now just shrink up that tail until it looks like a stitch. Can you see that? And now sew in that tail. Now we have the tail at the very top of our poncho to sew in. And now it's a good time because we can make it match really pretty. So again, thread your needle. And I'm just going to do an invisible join. I'm just going to put my needle through the 2 strands of that first stitch, like that, and back down into the center of that stitch, just like that. And then that looks a bit like a stitch joined up. And now I can just take my yarn and reinforce that stitch a little bit, just in the center, kind of going back and forth. It is around our neckline. It'll get some wear and tear, so I'm just going to strengthen it a little bit with this tail. Just making sure it still looks cute at the top. Now for me, I'm switching to a sharp tip needle just to make sure that tail is worked in between those fibers instead of just around them. I'm just going to do that twice, and then I can cut off the tail. Now sew in the rest of your tails, and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.